Hey guys, welcome back to Cratermania. I'm your host, Crater. So how you guys doing tonight? First of all, I should ask that on at the beginning of all my streams. How are you guys doing tonight? Um, this week has been kind of a crazy week for me personally. Um, been super busy at work and stuff this week. And then today actually my son got pretty sick. And we had to actually take him to the doctor, see what was going on with him. But fortunately, he's feeling better now. He just got had a little bit of issues there with. Don't really want to go into that, but glad that he's doing better. Like I said, it's been busy at work this week and stuff, and had to make a little bit of a change this week to the stream. So if you had seen the previous thumbnail that I had uploaded for this stream, for the Cop Comedy stream, I was going to be doing the first 6 Police Academy movies and the 3 Naked Gun movies. Just due to like this week being insane, um, I didn't get around to watching the Naked Gun movies. So hopefully I will be able to reschedule those for another time. Um, but I did get to watch the first 6 Police Academy movies, and that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. So if you're tuned in for the Naked Gun movies, I do apologize for that, but like I said, I will try to get those rescheduled for a different time, and I'll let you guys know once I get that all figured out. Um, but yeah, I watched these Police Academy movies this week, and this is the first time that I had really watched all of them, uh, except for the last one. I didn't watch Mission to Moscow. I didn't have that planned because I don't really like Mission to Moscow, so I just don't. So if you guys like that, that's cool, but it's not one I really like. So I always, whenever I watch the Police Academy movies, I leave that one out. Um, and I know that's kind of weird, but it's just that's what I do. Um, but the first 6 movies I did watch this week, and I'm going to be covering those. And like I said, I haven't watched these in a while. I watched the first one, not too long ago, um, because that's to me that's one of the very best ones. And I think when I did watch it, I had probably planned to watch the other ones, but I just didn't get around to it. But yeah, so. Well, I guess we could go ahead and start talking about those. I can just jump right into this. Um, so the Police Academy movies were a big thing for me growing up. I think a lot of that slapstick humor in these movies is I can be thankful for these movies because that's the kind of humor that I love. I love the slapstick humor, and these movies are a very important part of my childhood growing up. I absolutely loved them. They even had a cartoon and a toy line. I had some of the toys. I remember when I was a kid, I definitely had the Tackleberry figure that came with his motorcycle. Um, but yeah, like I said, these movies are super important to me from my childhood. And when I was planning to do this 500 movies in 2025, I said I definitely have to put the Police Academy movies in there somewhere. Um, but yeah, so I guess I could go ahead and start talking about them. So the first movie, of course, the original 1984 Police Academy. Um, well, I mean, it's a class. It's a true '80s comedy classic, and I think it's one of the best police comedy movies of all time. Um, so Police Academy is it's a satirical poke, I guess, at law enforcement. which specifically highlights the absurdity that ensues um, when this mandate that was created by the mayor that forces the police academy to accept literally anyone who wants to join the academy. Um, and this opens the floodgates to like a motley crew of characters, all with very different personalities, and it's really the clash between these personalities and their superiors at the academy that really fuels that film's humor. Um, so speaking of those characters, I guess we could go ahead and meet this class of cadets. Um, so leading the charge here is Carrie Mahoney, and he's the charming, perpetually smirking troublemaker that's played by Steve Gutenberg, the Goot. Um, and Mahoney is like the the linchpin, I guess you could call it, the instigator, and often like the unwilling participant in the film's most like memorable jokes and gags. Um, then we have like the rest of the main crew here who we'll get to know better in the later movies. There's Hooks, who's played by Marion Ramsey. She's like kind of a soft spoken lady who kind of discovers her voice later on, so to speak. Then you got Hightower, who's played by Bubba Smith, and I'm pretty sure Bubba Smith used to be a football player. I'm not too familiar with him outside of the Police Academy movies, but I love his character Hightower. He's just this like gentle giant character who uh, who hides like that immense, I guess, strength with behind his quiet demeanor. Then you got Eugene Tackleberry, which is, and this guy, he's one of my favorite characters in all the movies. Um, and like I said, when I was a kid, I had his action figure from the cartoon in the toy line that came with his motorcycle. And he's like this gun obsessed like maniac, and I love it. And then of course you can't forget the human sound effects machine, um, Larvell Jones, who's played by Michael Winslow. And Michael Winslow he played a big part in my favorite movie of all time, Gremlins. He was the voice of like the Mogwais, some of the Mogwais and the Gremlins. But I think, and he's also in Cheech and Chong's next movie, and he has like a cameo in Spaceballs. But I think when anybody that knows who Michael Winslow is, I think whenever they think of him, they think of Police Academy, because that's really where he made his like claim to fame, I think. Um, and you can't forget about the Mahoney's love interest in this, which is Karen Thompson, played by Kim Cattrall, from one of my favorite John Carpenter movies of all time, Big Trouble in Little China. And this is the only Police Academy movie that she's in too. Like, so it's, um, I don't know. I guess she just got better offers, or what I don't know what happened, why she wasn't in any of the future Police Academy movies. But on the other side of the coin, we have like the antagonist of the movie, which is played by G.W. Bailey, and that's Lieutenant Harris. Um, he's like this uptight, power hungry guy that's just who's a stick in the mud, and he doesn't see any hope at all in these cadets that are coming to the academy. He has no faith in them. He just thinks they're bound to fail. But and you also can't I almost forgot one. You can't forget Callahan, who is this voluptuous badass police officer who's played by Leslie Easterbrook, and I love Leslie Easterbrook. She's also in The Devil's Rejects as Mama Firefly, and several other things. But this was my introduction to her. Was with the Police Academy movies. So yeah, you definitely can't forget about her. Um, and to talk about some of the scenes in this movie that I really like. So you can't. I can't give a review on Police Academy without mentioning the basic training montage. I think this is the where it really sets the stage for the movie, um, and it really just shows how hilarious and unique all these different uh, cadets are that are going through the training. So they're like going through the obstacle courses and the weapons training and just everything they're doing is just making like life miserable for Harris. Um, so that yeah, you definitely can't forget about the basic training montage. I love it because there's like the scene where Hightower, when they're trying to go over this wall, instead of Hightower climbing over the wall, he just knocks down the wall and just walks over it. I love that. Um, So another scene I really like, and well, this is kind of a combination of two scenes mishmashed together, um, and to kind of set this up. So like within like I guess like the first week of training or whatever, Mahoney's trying to put together this party for all the cadets, and Harris hears about it. So he tries to get these like two cadets who are kind of like kiss asses to Harris, Blanks and Copeland. He tries to get them to find out where the party's going to be. And of course, they don't know either because Mahoney doesn't like fooling with those guys. So they go to this one cadet, which I forgot to mention when I was naming off all the cadet Barbara. And so Blanks and Copeland go to him and are like, "Hey, do you know where the party's at?" And he's like, "No, I'm going to my mother's this weekend." And they're like, "Well, we need you to party is." So Barbara goes to Mahoney to ask him where the party's going to be, and he's he's like, "Oh, you want to come?" He's like, "No, I'm going to my mother's this weekend." He's like, "Well, why do you want to know?" And he says, "Oh, I'm just trying to find out." And Mahoney kind of catches on to what's going. He's like, "Oh, this Harris is trying to get information on this." So Mahoney, with his quick wit, he thinks of to just tell Barbara, like, it's at the Blue Oyster bar, and so that that information gets back to Blanks and Copeland and Harris and all that. So then we cut to the actual party where Mahoney's put on. And they never really say where the party was at, but it just shows it's like a campfire built around. They're all like playing music and dancing, and Tackleberry's playing a saxophone, and I think Jones is like running around with a ukulele or something, and there's girls there. They're like I said, they're all singing, they're dancing and listening to music, and those girls are like taking their tops off, and everybody's having fun. So at the same time, Blanks and Copeland go to this place called the Blue Oyster Bar. Um, and it ends up being this gay bar, and it's got all this like stereotypes of gay men from the 80s that you'd see in a lot of the 80s movies where they were kind of dressed like rip-offs of the Village People and stuff like that. But that becomes like a recurring joke in several of the Police Academy movies. So I was always look forward to seeing the Blue Oyster Bar featured in those movies. But yeah, Blanks and Copeland they end up there. So the guys at the bar don't want them to leave, so they kind of like keep them there, and they're like dancing with them and stuff. And it kind of exemplifies like the movie's like willingness to push boundaries and kind of just embrace the absurdity of it all. And I absolutely love that. Um, but my favorite scene in this movie, I think it's the funniest scene in the whole movie, has to do with Blanks and Copeland, where they try to get revenge on Barbara. They think it's Barbara's fault for sending them to the wrong place at the Blue Oyster Bar. So they try to get revenge on him. So on the day they're doing like the room inspection, Blanks and Copeland, they hire a prostitute, and they send her to Barbara's room. So Barbara goes in and sees her. He's like, "Oh, what I want to do." So he goes to Mahoney, and Mahoney's like, "Okay, I'll take care of this." So Mahoney takes the prostitute and goes across the campus or whatever from the academy to their auditorium, and he's just trying to hide her or whatever. But right as that's happening, here comes Commandant Lassard, leading like a tour across the academy of all these like different um, like military guys and different police officers. And so they go into the auditorium where he's going to give this presentation up on stage. Well, before they had came in, Mahoney and the prostitute seen that they were coming, so they hide underneath this podium. Like here's a podium, and the back of the podium has like a curtain, and so they hide behind the curtain. And like I said, Lassard's going up on stage to do this like presentation with these like pictures up on a projector and stuff of all these different locations around the academy. And so as he's starting to give this speech and talking about these the pictures and stuff behind him to the crowd that's sitting there, um, the prostitute like peels the curtain and like unzips his pants and starts giving him a blowjob. And so like, and he just his reaction to this is just like, he's like, what the hell's going on? And and then there's like a part where he's like talking about a pictures behind him, and he goes, "Oh my god, it's so beautiful," or something like that. And right at the end of that scene is what makes the joke even better, is that as all the crowd is leaving out of the auditorium and Lassard's coming behind them, he kind of stops and turns, and right as he stops and turns, he looks, instead of the prostitute coming out underneath that curtain from behind the podium first, Mahoney comes out. So Lassard is led to believe that it was Mahoney doing that to him. Oh man, I absolutely love that. So and it just makes me laugh every single time so hard. I mean, it's so funny. I'm not really good at describing that thing, but you have to watch it for yourself to know what I'm talking about. Um, so there's a part in the movie where Harris arranges this training exercise, I guess, to where the cadets have to ride with an already like official officer on the police force. So they're going to do like a ride along thing. So Harris has Mahoney come with him, and then they get to a point to where they're on this road, and there's all this big traffic jam. And Harris, he says, "Oh, what's going on here or whatever," and so he gets out of the car and he goes up to this guy that's on this dirt bike. And the guy's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "This is official police business or whatever." So he gets on the dirt bike and he's just riding along, and he's like to try to get through there. And it kind of cuts to this where it shows this truck with like a trailer on the back of it that has a horse in there, and the horse is kind of like is just like turned where it's facing like this way, and then here and Harris is coming this way towards it on the dirt bike, and he like pops the wheel and he comes down, and then like this car pulls back and Harris rams right into the dirt bike and he goes flying off, and then it shows him like, and right before like it cuts, it shows like the horse's tail raise up, and it's implying that Harris's head goes up the horse's ass. Oh man, just like there's so much in this movie that's so funny. I mean, it from start to finish, this movie rules. It really does. And so they get back, and like goes up to Mahoney's like, "You didn't tell anybody, did you?" He's like, "No, no, no, no." And then but like all the other cadets are like laughing and stuff, like they're trying to hold their laughter. And then he gets by Jones, Michael Winslow's character, and he does like the like like a horse sound or something, and they all like start dying laughing. Um, but yeah, like I mean, there's so many scenes in this, and the ending of this movie is like is so crazy because of like the majority of the movie they're like doing this training and everything, but with every police movie, there's got to be some kind of instance of like crime that they're battling. Well, in the police academy movies, a lot of that you don't see until the very end, and it comes across randomly, um, and there's the way it happens in the original movie is like so. Fackler, who I forgot to mention as well, I love Fackler in these movies because he's like the symbol of like bad luck. So everything around him is like bad luck happening. So and this is how the whole crime wave of stuff comes into the movie is with Fackler because he's doing like this ride along with the whatever this other police officer, and he's just sitting in the car by himself while the other officer went to go buy something to eat. Well, and there's these guys like standing around just staring at Fackler, and then they're all mean looking at him and all that. And so here comes the other officer back into the car, and he's got a hot dog, and he just gives like an apple to to Fackler. Um, oh, hey Dana. Oh, you're fine. You don't worry about being late. I mean, hey, just glad you showed up. That's. I'm happy to have you here. You said you ran it back, and you're glad that Noah's feeling better. Yeah, me too. He was pretty rough earlier. But yeah, I'm glad he's doing good now. Um, but anyway, like I said, Fackler gets that apple given to him by the other police officer, and he's just like, I don't want this or whatever, and he just throws it out, and it hits like this one guy, and then the guy turns around and he thinks it was like another guy on the street that threw the apple at him, and they start fighting, and then this leads to a bunch of other people fighting and causing chaos, and and it erupts into like a full blown riot, and just all because Fackler threw that apple out, and and so it just leads to the police force having to put on all this riot gear and come downtown, and like so it's just everything's going crazy at this point, and it gets to the point where Harris gets kidnapped by one of the rioters who had stole, I think, either Blank's or Copeland's guns, and takes him up to this rooftop. Um, but I'll get to that in just a minute. But I just want to say that the police academy isn't just about the comedy. I mean, there's surprisingly a good message about like teamwork and stuff in this movie. So, and I think the ending to this perfectly encapsulates that because where the cadets that Harris had no hope for, they band together to save his ass pretty much, because from that armed rider on the roof. So Mahoney and Harris were at odds throughout the whole movie and stuff. But here's Mahoney, coming to help save Harris's butt, from this guy up on the roof. Um, and and then Hightower's up there too with him, and they're trying to, and they eventually save him. Like Hightower knocks that guy out, and that guy goes like tumbling down these stairs, and then that's when Hooks, delivers that iconic line, "Don't move, dirtbag," and that's when she finally finds her voice after being given hell by Harris and them throughout the whole movie because she was so soft spoken. So it's really cool, and I really end up loving Hooks as a character throughout the rest of the movies. Yeah, she's just all these characters are great, but but that the whole ending of that is just a moment of like I think character growth, and it kind of underscores the film's underlying message of empowerment, I guess. Um, and it's so good because it kind of subverts your expectation, where these so-called misfits, the ones that were deemed unfit for service, and they kind of prove themselves to be these capable and courageous, police officers. And yeah, it's a really cool movie. I mean, I absolutely love it. Hey Zach, how's it going? How are you doing, man? I'm doing pretty good today. Glad to have you here, man. Um, So I guess that leads me to our next movie in the franchise, which is Police Academy 2, The First Assignment. Um, Now, this was released in 1985, and it immediately follows the events from the first movie where the cadets have just graduated from the academy. And meanwhile, over in this other city, where the 16th Precinct Police Force is, and it's ran by Captain Pete Lassard, played by Howard Hessman, and he's the brother of Commandant Eric Lassard of from the original film. Um, so over the 16th precinct, they're struggling with their city being overrun with crime. That's caused by this punk gang called the Scullions, and their leader is Zed McGlunk, which is Bobcat Goldthwait, who ends up being one of the greatest Police Academy characters in the franchise. Um, Now, the 16th precinct is needing some younger cops to come into the precinct to assist with all this crime in the city. So they bring in six rookies that just graduated from the academy. Mahoney and Jones and Hightower and Hooks and Fackler and Tackleberry. So that's the six that they bring over. Um, and other than the police officers trying to stop all the crime in the city, the movie has a couple of other subplots going on too. Um, so Lieutenant Ernie Mauser, who's played by Art Matrano in this, he's part of that 16th precinct, along with his sidekick Sergeant Carl Proctor, who's played by Lance Kinsey, and they're continuously trying to scheme to get Pete Lassard out of that position of captain, so Mauser can take his place. Um, Now Mahoney, he realizes what's going on. He comes up with a few like hilarious pranks throughout the movie to mess with Mauser, and much like he did with Harris in the original movie. Um, Now one of these pranks includes Mahoney switching out the shampoo with glue while Mauser is taking a shower, which results in Mauser's hands getting glued to the head of his hair, which eventually caused him to have to get a really bad toupee. But and that's I think that's one of the funniest jokes in this one is when he gets that like stuck his hand stuck to his hair and everything, and he has to run out there in the hallway, and they're giving this tour or whatever of the precinct of these civilians, and he just runs out there completely naked with his hands glued to his head. Um, and another really funny joke that's in the movie that's presented with that scene is when after Proctor like cuts Mauser's hands free from his hands still have like ton of hair all in his palms, and and Mahoney makes the joke, "Sir, if you don't stop that, you could go blind." It's that little childish humor that I just love about these movies. Um, Now, the other little subplot in this, which I really enjoy this one a lot because, like I said, Tackleberry is one of my favorite characters in the franchise. So it's a romance that's involving him, and so upon joining the 16th precinct, the rookies are all assigned to these new partners, and Tackleberry is assigned to the motorcycle patrol with his new partner, Corporal Kathleen Kirkland, who's played by the beautiful Colleen Camp. Um, Now, Tackleberry, he just quickly falls in love with Kirkland, um, and he sees he has a lot in common with her, including her being a gun nut just like him, and they start to like each other, and so they agree to go on a date. And before the date, there's a scene where Mahoney and Tackleberry are talking, and we find out Tackleberry's still a virgin. So when they go on this, he goes on this date with Kirkland. They kind of have this awkward date, but it ends up back at her place, where they end up having sex, and during this scene is like they're taking their clothes off and stuff. It does this. There's a funny little joke where. Um, they're like strapped with several different guns underneath their clothes, and it will, like, as they're taking all these guns off of each other, it shows like it'll cut to the side of the room that they're throwing all these guns in a pile, and it ends up being like 7 or 8 guns or something, which makes the joke about them being gun nuts even funnier. Um, Now, this romance story between them continues in later parts of the movie too, with Tackleberry meeting Kirkland's parents, and eventually at the end they get married, and the movie ends with them leaving the ceremony in a Bigfoot monster truck. Um, Now, this movie, in my opinion, is just as good and just as funny as the original. And we get several new hilarious characters to add to the franchise. Um, Now, other than the ones I mentioned already, we also have Carl Sweetchuck, who's played by Tim Kazurinsky. Now, he does not have a big part in this movie, but we get to see more of him in some of the future movies. And then you got Mahoney's new partner from the 16th Precinct, Vinny Stuhlman, who's played by Peter Van Norden. Now, Vinny's introduction in the movie is particularly interesting to me because of his decorated apartment where Mahoney visits him at. Um, and aside from Vinny's dog Lou, who kind of reminds you of Cujo, when Mahoney first visits, when he first enters Vinny's apartment, there are like Mad magazine clippings taped up all over the wall and the windows, and when he gets inside his apartment, all his walls are decorated with like movie posters of Frankenstein, and there's Godzilla posters. There's one of the Mummy Shroud. There's one called the Giant Claw. There's Three Stooges posters and pictures on the wall. And there's a photo of Lon Chaney's Wolfman up on the wall. It's really cool. All kinds of cool stuff. Um, Now his apartment, aside from all that cool stuff, it's an absolute mess, and Vinny is pretty slobby, but I can overlook that, since the his character has good taste in movies and all that other cool stuff. Um, this movie comes across as a lot more cartoonish too than the original, but I feel like making it more cartoonish makes it more entertaining to me. And in the long run, that kind of humor gave it enough success for them to produce an animated series and a toy line. Um, Now, one scene, for example, when I talk about the movie being more cartoonish, um, one scene, for example, is when Jones, Michael Winslow's character, catches these punks trying to rob a loading dock to an Asian restaurant, and he does this like gigantic leap into a somersault over this locked gate that had to be like 15 feet high or more. And and he proceeds to start imitating Bruce Lee, where he does like you've probably seen this in movies where like they kind of make fun of the dubbing in Asian cinema, like where like they'll be like, "You killed my brother," and stuff like that. Or just that's a bad example, but you know what I mean. Like that's what he's doing when he's imitating Bruce Lee, and that bit is like I said, is used in the cartoon and all that stuff too, like and some of the other police academy movies. But as I said before, I think this movie is great, and it's just as good as the original in its own way. I think it definitely cements itself as one of my top favorites in the whole franchise. Um, but I guess moving on, the next one on this list that I watched this week is Police Academy 3, Back in Training. And this was released in 1986, the year I was born. And it was directed by Jerry Paris, who also directed the second film. I forgot to mention that. But yes, Jerry Paris directed both Police Academy 2 and 3. And, I'd like to talk about Jerry Paris for just a minute because this man is a legendary director in comedy, and he's one of the biggest reasons this franchise was successful. Um, so if you're not familiar with his name, you may know him from a lot of classic TV. Now because he directed 84 episodes of the Dick Van Dyke Show, 237 episodes of Happy Days, and just a ton of other stuff. He also played Jerry on the Dick Van Dyke Show, which was Rob and Laura's neighbor. Um, but Police Academy 2 and 3 would be the last two feature films that he would direct. And um, strangely enough, Police Academy 3 would end up being released only 10 days before his death in 1986. So, big thanks to Jerry Paris. You know, he was a wonderful filmmaker, director, and yeah. So rest in peace, Jerry Paris. So anyway, the movie revolves around Commandant Lassard and Commandant Mauser. So yes, so Mauser from the second one has now become the commandant of his precinct. So he got promoted from lieutenant. Um, but in this one, like so, they're pitted against one another when the governor announces that the state can't afford to keep both of their police academies open. So Lassard asked some of his old cadets to train the new recruits that are coming in. And as evaluation day approaches, each side just keeps doing things to try to sabotage the other. Um, so in this one, Mahoney and the gang all return here, and as a bonus, so do the characters of Sweet Chuck and Zed from Police Academy 2. Only this time, Sweet Chuck and Zed are cadets um, in training at the academy, and they may be the most entertaining aspect of this one, in my opinion. Um, but I'll get to that in just a minute. But you also can't forget the return of the voluptuous Lieutenant Debbie Callahan, who was again played by Leslie Easterbrook, who she hadn't been seen since the first movie. Like I said, because I'm assuming like in Police Academy 2, she was just still at the academy, so that's why. And then the other characters were sent to this other precinct, so I'm guessing that's the reason of why she wasn't in 2. Um, but then you got Bud Kirkland, who was played by Andrew Paris, and is the son of the director Jerry Paris, who is now the brother-in-law of Tackleberry. And then you got Violet Fackler as well, who's played by Deborah Lee Scott. You may know her. She was, I think they called her Hotsy Totsy in the TV show Welcome Back, Kotter. But she's Fackler's wife, and they both returned to the franchise after only previously having, both, I mean, meaning her and Bud Kirkland, they returned to the franchise after only previously having roles that lasted only a few minutes in the previous films. To this one, they're featured throughout the whole movie, just about, and oddly enough, Fackler only makes a brief cameo at the beginning when his wife is going to the academy. He's trying to stop her. So the roles are kind of reversed this time from the opening of the first movie. Because in the first movie, when Fackler is trying to go to the academy and join up, his wife is trying to stop him from joining the academy. So I thought that was an interesting little tidbit about the movie. But new to the franchise, that are recruits Karen Adams, who was played by Sean Weatherly. She was apparently Miss USA in 1980 and also Miss Universe in 1980. And then we also have Tomoko Nagata, who was played by Brian Tochi, who I got to meet Brian Tochi several years ago at a Fright Night Film Fest convention in Louisville. He was in the Revenge of the Nerds movies. He was the voice of Leonardo in the original Ninja Turtles 90s movie trilogy. Yeah, he's super, super cool guy too. Super nice. I have a Ninja Turtles leg sleeve tattoo, and he was looking at that. and he was like trying to. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm not gonna lie. Like he's like, "Hey everybody, look at this guy. He's got a full Ninja Turtles tattoo on his leg," and I was like, "What the fuck?" But like I said, he was doing that out of he thought he was doing good with that, which he was, I guess. But like I said, it was a little. I'm not gonna lie, a little bit embarrassing. But super cool guy. If you ever go to conventions and you get a chance to meet him, I'd highly recommend it. Now speaking of his character Nagata, he has this interesting romantic relationship with Callahan in this movie. The reason I say is interesting because the scenes between them almost feel identical to the relationship from 16 Candles between Long Duck Dong and the that big tall girl that had the big titties and everything that he falls for in 16 Candles. Now it's very possible that this is where that inspiration came from, since the movie was released 2 years after 16 Candles. Um, Give me 1 second. Let's get a drink of my Sunny D. Um, and speaking of romantic relationships, uh, noticeably missing from this movie is Colleen Camp, who played Kirkland in the second movie. She married Tackleberry, but like she's nowhere to be seen in this one. I don't know if she wanted to come back for the third movie or what, but I'm glad that in her absence, Kirkland is still acknowledged, and her brother Bud got to fill that spot. Um, but to be honest, as much as I love this one and find it just as hilarious as the previous two, there's not much of a story here outside the competition between the two academies. Um, there's so much random shit going on at times. The whole movie feels more like a series of skits to me, but it oddly works with this kind of slapstick humor. So I'm not knocking it in any way. It's just something that I noticed about it. But especially when it comes to the scenes with Zed and Sweet Chuck, those two have like such strange chemistry, but it totally works, and their scenes are probably my favorites from this movie. Like, so Bobcat Goldthwait, he is Zed feels like if the Muppet animal was a real person. His constant like rambling and yelling with his unique voice, it really steals the show, I think. And the pranks in this from Mahoney on Mauser and Proctor, they they can they continue this one just as they did from the second movie. And like in one scene, Mahoney he tricks Mauser into being blindfolded with tape over his eyes to try to tell the difference between champagne and beer. And afterwards, Mauser asks Proctor to help him remove the tape, which when the tape is removed, Mauser's eyebrows get ripped off, much like how the toupee joke from the second movie. Um, and Mauser he has to replace them with these like fake bushy eye. Well, first Proctor tries to like draw them on with a marker or whatever, and they it looks really bad. But then he ends up getting like these fake eyebrows that are huge, bushy, like Groucho Marx eyebrows or something. It makes him look like a literal cartoon. But that's one of the things I love most, but is like the cartoonish aspects of these movies. Um, so the ending of this movie, yet again, it comes out of nowhere, and when these like group of thieves attack the governor's ball at a yacht club, and they kidnap the governor, and they try to escape on these speedboats. So this leads to this wild chase scene from the police academy squad, and this is a recurring thing in the other police academy movies that will follow this one, where they try to like basically each movie at the end when they do the chase scene, it's like one up in the last movie of an absurdity. But anyway, like I said, it leads to this wild chase from the police academy squad, they're on jet skis, and some of these action sequences here are like so over the top and unrealistic, but it's just hilarious, and I'm pretty sure that was the intention with that whole scene. Um, but after the governor is saved, the decision is made, and Lasard's academy is chosen to be the only police academy in the state. So overall, I guess this movie rules. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, like, and a lot of that has to do with Bobcat Goldthwait's character Zed. I mean, it's just, oh my gosh, it's one of those characters that has to be seen to believe. Um, and even in its randomness, it's definitely one of the biggest standouts of the franchise, I think, too. And forever be loved, and with me, at least, thanks to the comedic genius of Jerry Paris. So, yeah. And Dana, you said you agree about, yeah. I mean, he's definitely like he's one of my favorites, and he's definitely, I think, the funniest thing about the Police Academy movie. He's only in the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. Sadly, and but I'll get around to that here in just a little bit. So, moving on to the next one, which would be Police Academy 4 Citizens on Patrol. And this one was released in 1987 and directed by Jim Drake. So, you probably figured out at this point there's a new Police Academy movie coming out every year. Starting in '84, and now we're up to '87. And I got a couple more I'm gonna be talking about after this too. And so all the ones, and I didn't like realize this until after I had like watched the movies. I was like, there's one coming out every year, and I've only covered the ones that are in the '80s. So, because after Part Six came out in 1989, there wasn't another Police Academy movie, which is that Mission to Moscow, which I really don't like. It didn't come out till '94, I think. So, and I think that's one of the reasons why Mission Moscow was not that great, because at that point in the '90s, comedy had kind of moved on to a different style, and there wasn't as many people like interested in the whole slapstick style that much. And a lot of these jokes, just kind of fell short in the last few entries of the Police Academy movies anyway. But anyway, I'll get to more of that here in a little bit. But in this movie, Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol, Commandant Lassard, who he's always looking for different ways to stop crime, he comes up with this Citizens on Patrol, or COP program. Um, and this whole initiative kind of aims to recruit civilians, is like in to train them to work alongside the police on like kind of like a neighborhood watch on steroids or something. Um, so Mahoney and the gang, they're back again in this one, and unfortunately, this would be Steve Gutenberg, the Goots, last Police Academy movie. Um, he was supposed to return to Police Academy 5, but there was the scheduling issue, I think, because he was working on 3 Men and a Baby at the time. Um, and that's something I'll get to here in a little bit too. I want to talk a little bit is that he was, these Police Academy movies is what really made him successful as an actor. What really got him attention and being of earning more roles throughout the '80s. So, but I'll talk a little bit about that here towards the end of the video. But anyway, um, the good news, even though that Steve Gutenberg didn't get to be a part of this, um, is that when he left the franchise, or he did get to be part of part five, is what I meant, is that this got to come full circle before he left the franchise, because G.W. Bailey returns in this one as Harris, replacing Mauser from the previous two movies. And I think the story with that was that Art Matrano, who played Mauser, um, he asked to be replaced for the rest of the series after Police Academy 3. And I guess instead of creating a new character, they just went back to Mahoney's original nemesis from the first movie, Harris, which I feel that was an excellent decision to do that because, and they probably didn't realize at the time because that this would have been Steve Gutenberg's last Police Academy movie. But I just felt like that was a good way for him to not be to that be the end of him being in the series. Is by coming back full circle to having this kind of rivalry with Harris. Um, Now, this would also be the last police academy that we would see Kathleen, Bud, and their mom from the Kirkland family. They make a brief appearance towards the beginning when the family, along with Tackleberry, are all having dinner and they're discussing the cop program. And I think I failed to mention this before when I was talking about the Police Academy 2 and 3. But the Kirkland family, they have this like hilarious relationship, especially between Bud Kirkland and the father, who are always like playfully like punching each other in the face. And since they both have boxing backgrounds, and every time this happens in the movies, that the look on Tackleberry's face is it's like his eyes are real wide, and his face is priceless. Um, and it's a strange dynamic, but for me, it was noticeably missing, in the future movies of the franchise. Um, this was also the first Police Academy movie that Fackler doesn't appear in at all, but he does show back up in Police Academy 6. Um, Now the cop program brings in a very diverse group of these volunteers. Uh, First, we got Tommy Conklin, who, aka House, who's played by Tab Thacker. And if you watched my Super Bowl special stream from last week, um, I talked about a movie called Wildcats, which I had never watched before. And Tab Thacker's actually in that. He plays, I forget what his name was now, Philip or something like that. He was the real smart kid on the that wasn't a part of the team at first, but then Goldie Hawn convinced him to be a part of the team. Um, but anyway, in Police Academy 4, he plays House, who is this big lovable guy that Hightower knew since um, House was a kid, I guess, and he probably babysat him or something. I don't know, but he knew him since he was a kid. And but yeah, he's a really cool addition to this one. Then you got Lois Feldman, played by Billy Bird. She was the grandmother of 16 Candles. She was in a ton of stuff from back in the day and classic TV and stuff. But I think a lot of people probably recognize her as the lady at the airport in Home Alone when Kevin's mom is trying to like bribe her by like earrings and all these different things to try to trade her for the plane ticket home. Um, and she's like, "Oh, Ed, please." Uh, but yeah, I think that's where a lot of people would recognize her. She's kind of got a unique look too, so she kind of stands out from a lot of different actors around the same age as her at that time. Um, but she's just this senior citizen lady who kind of has the same personality as Tackleberry. So her and Tackleberry end up getting along really well and become friends. Um, then you got Kyle and Arnie. So Kyle is played by David Spade, and I think this was David Spade's first ever movie that he was in. And then you got Brian Backer who played Arnie, and for my horror movie fans, Brian Backer as Alfred from The Burning, which was that was his first movie he'd ever done, and shortly after that, he also plays Rat in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. But in this one, like Kyle and Arnie, they're these two skateboarders who end up getting a second chance and instead of jail time, so they join the cop program. And what's cool about this is that this was a time in the 80s when skateboarding was becoming super popular. And this had to be one of the first movies, aside from Back to the Future, to feature skateboarding. Um, this even has cameos in the mall scene towards the beginning from the Bones Brigade skateboarding team, which included Tony Hawk, who was also David Spade's stunt double in this movie, and then Steve Caballero, Mike McGill, and a couple other guys, um, and they're all within that early scene in the movie. When before they go to the mall. But Stacy Peralta, who created the Bones Brigade back in the '80s, is he's one of the original Dogtown Z Boys that kind of pioneered skateboarding. So he ended up getting to be one of the second unit directors for this movie as well. So I never knew that until I watched it. 'Cause when I was watching the movie and after it ended, I was watching the credits, and I seen his name pop up there as the second unit director, and I was like, "Holy shit, that's awesome!" So, anyway, there's your skateboarding history lesson for today. Um, so the opening of this movie, it also features a really funny rap song, which is written and performed for the movie by Michael Winslow and a group called the LA Dream Team. I'm not familiar with the LA Dream Team, but I kind of want to look more into them now because I am a fan of old school hip hop from the '80s and early '90s, and yeah, it really. I thought the song was really funny and cool. So how they worked with Michael Winslow because he's like that human sound effects machine. So he's putting in all these little sounds and stuff in the song. It's really fun. And at this point, Michael Winslow was one of the most well known things about the franchise because of him being that human sound effects machine. And in the same year as this was released, as I mentioned earlier, he got to have a cameo appearance in Spaceballs that was also released in 1987. Um, and also at this point, comedic romances had become a kind of a reoccurring thing for the franchise because in this one, Zed, uh, who, like I said, I feel stole the show in Police Academy 3. He has this featured subplot where he shows more of his like sensitive side, and he develops a relationship with this girl named Laura, who's also a volunteer for the cop program. Um, and it's also not surprising that Zed has some of the most hilarious bits in this movie. Once again, he's just such a bizarre character, but he's so funny. Mainly because of his voice and how he acts. I love Bobcat Goldthwait. He was there was a show I used to watch. I think it came out in the '90s, late '90s, I believe it's called Unhappily Ever After, and it was kind of like of a ripoff of Married with Children. But there was always these scenes where the main character Jack would go down in his basement, and he had this like uh, stuffed animal bunny. It's called Mr. Bunny, and it would like come alive and talk to. So he was like a puppet, using the show. So he would come alive and talk to him, and it was the voice was Bobcat Goldthwait, and I love that. And I recently, I'm a big fan of like found footage films, and I recently found out that Bobcat Goldthwait has a found footage Sasquatch film. I forget what that's called, but I definitely that's one I definitely need to watch. I think he directed it, if I'm not mistaken. So that's interesting. I don't think I've seen. I don't know if he's directed anything else, but like Bobcat Goldthwait in the '80s and '90s was definitely a hell of a character, a hell of a character actor for sure. Um, so there's this joke in this that was kind of reused, sort of from Police Academy 2 when Mahoney switched out the Mauser shampoo with glue. In this one, Harris, there's a point in the movie where he humiliates Zed in front of Laura. And as revenge, Zed switches Harris's deodorant spray out with mace. And when Harris sprays that mace in his armpits, like all this smoke starts rolling out his armpits, and afterwards he has to wear like this thing that holds his arms out like this. He's just walking around like this. Oh man, that's it's so funny. You just gotta watch that. Um, but the most memorable scene from Police Academy 4, and I think it is for a lot of other people too, is when Jones overhears the cop volunteers, Kyle, Arnie, and House. They're all talking about how they think they're tough enough and they're ready to go out and start busting the bad guys. So Jones takes this information to Mahoney, and they orchestrate this prank to scare the boys by taking them on a ride in a police van, where they stop at this back alley to arrest these two known felons. Um, and Mahoney asked the boys to stay behind. And once they go inside the building, Jones starts making like gunfire sound effects and deaths, and he's like people screaming their lungs out from as they're dying, and this scares the boys real bad. And they're like, what the hell is going on? Um, so when Jones and Mahoney come back out, they have Hightower with them, and he's disguised as like this voodoo witch doctor guy, and he's carrying somebody in a body bag, which you're led to believe it was the person that was supposed to have got shot or whatever and killed. So they put the body in the back of that van, and Hightower gets in, and then the boys get in. And on the ride back, Hightower starts doing like this voodoo chant, and he's like sprinkling something over the body bag. And he's like yama 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 yama, and, and he does like this really creepy like Jamaican laugh, and then as he's doing that, like this chainsaw starts ripping through the body bag from the inside, and then Tackleberry bursts out from the inside, and he's got the chainsaw, and he's wearing this red hockey mask. It gives it like this whole vibe of like a horror movie. He said, it's just dosed with comedy, and this causes the boys to jump out of the van screaming for their lives. They run off. I absolutely love it. But anyway, the ending of this is done in, like, I guess, true random ass Police Academy fashion. When at the jail, all these various different criminals, including Tex Cobb, if you know Tex Cobb, was also like a martial artist, and he was in Ernest Goes to Jail, and he's been in a ton of other stuff as well. But it's him, and there's like a group of ninjas, and they all, they trick Proctor, and they escape from the jail, and then they lock Proctor up instead, and some of the other officers there at the jail. And this results in this bizarre chase scene involving like fighter planes and hot air balloons. Like I said, they try to one up the chase scene with each movie after the third one. But and when they're in this chase scene with the fighter planes and the hot air balloons and all that, there's some really cool stunt work being done here in this scene. And I mean, I don't know what the safety precautions were for them, but these look like pretty dangerous stunts that they were doing in midair. But they're really cool to see though. Um, but then you got, of course, like the dialogue is hilarious between Zed and Sweet Chuck, because they're up there in one of the fighter planes. And then at the end of the movie, Zed's, I think this ends up being like the last line in the movie too, where Zed says that Sweet Chuck reminds him of Tom Cruise and Top Gun. Um, like I said, these movies are so ridiculously funny, like he's so random and stupid, but that's my type of humor. Um, but like I said, the movie ends with the police force saving the day once again, and before the credits roll, we see Mahoney with his love interest from the movie up in this police academy hot air balloon, and I forgot to mention. Excuse me. I can't believe I forgot to mention, but this his love interest in this is a reporter, played by Sharon Stone. And this had to be one of her earliest movies too. Like this was, I know she did a few others before this, because this was in '87 when this came out. So, but this was still very early in her career for her. But yeah, that's like I said, that's the way it ends. Like with Mahoney and her character up in this hot air balloon as they fly away, and that's the last you see of Steve Gutenberg in the Police Academy movies, or even hear his name mentioned. Because oddly, and I'll get to that in just a minute when I talk about Police Academy 5. But yeah, it's just really odd that they don't even acknowledge him. Or have any explanation as to why he's not in the movies anymore. But anyway, that's Police Academy 4. Another great entry in the franchise with, a ton of memorable moments and one that's for sure, will keep you laughing from start to finish. And unfortunately, this was the last Police Academy movie for me personally where it would keep me laughing from start to finish because now we're going into Police Academy 5. Um, Police Academy 5, Assignment Miami Beach, was released in 1988, and it was directed by Alan Meyerson. The movie follows Commandant Lassard and his team of officers as they travel to Miami Beach for Lassard to receive the Policeman of the Decade award. Um, However, chaos ensues with Lassard getting kidnapped by a group of these like incompetent jewel thieves, and Captain Harris is determined to take over the operation and prove himself. Because there's also a little bit where not only is Lassard receiving the Policeman of the Decade award, but he's at the age now where the state has to where legally the state has to make him retire from the position. So that's why Captain Harris is determined, to take over this operation, prove himself, so he can be the new commandant of the police academy. Um, and like I said, this was the first in the franchise to not feature Steve Gutenberg as Mahoney. Instead, they had Bubba Smith, who plays Hightower, replace him as the top billed star. Um, Gutenberg's absence is largely noticeable since his character is basically replaced with Matt McCoy as Commandant Lassard's nephew, Nick Lassard. And the movie is kind of fairly predictable, which it relies on the usual slapstick comedy and the antics of all the police academy characters. Um, the jewel thief subplot is not very engaging, I don't think. And this, to me, this is easily the weakest entry yet in the series. Um, Dana, you say Police Academy 5 is one of your favorites. Well, I mean, I, I can see how people would like it. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to down it completely. I think it does have some pretty funny jokes in it. Um, but I don't know. To me, a lot of the jokes and the humor in this one, they feel forced at times, and um, there's honestly nothing extremely funny about it that is memorable to me, like the stuff from the previous films. Um, but I will say that this is not my very least favorite. That would have to be Mission to Moscow. But this, if I was ranking them, Police Academy 5 would be like right before Mission to Moscow. Um, because I do like the sixth one better than this one, but I'll get into that a little bit. But and to me, I think honestly the most memorable thing about this one for me is at the end when Hightower he's wrestling this alligator, and he ends up saving Harris's life, and they promote uh, Hightower to lieutenant. So I thought I like that. I really like Hightower's character a lot. So to see him kind of have that moment where he got promoted and stuff in the end is really fun to me. And so that's one of the positive things I can say about this. But there's also the chase scene at the end that had become like a tradition, as I said, for the franchise at this point. And it seems with each entry, like I said, start with Police Academy 3, these segments get more and more ridiculous. They're just trying, each entry is trying to one up the last. And this time it's a fan boat chase. So they're all on these fan boats out in this like region of, I guess, somewhere in Miami, going through there, and and Commandant Lassard is still being kidnapped. He's on one of the fan boats with one of the jewel thieves, and what's funny about that, the whole kidnapping of Lassard, is that he thinks it's just a big prank throughout the whole movie. After he gets kidnapped, he thinks it's like a big like thing that they're doing where they're hazing him, where he's getting that police officer of the decade award. So he just thinks this whole thing is a joke, and then when he finds out at the end that it was real, it wasn't a joke, he just like he kind of does this thing where he goes, "Oh, okay," and he just like does these martial arts moves on the jewel thief and knocks him out. So I mean, he could have done that the entire time he was with them, but he just thought he was just going along with a joke. So I will say that's a pretty good, like, that's kind of creative when if I'm saying something that's about the movie. Um, Dana, you said what you do, Miss Steve Goo. Yeah, you can't. I mean, I think that's the reason. He's the reason, like, why one of the, or he was one of the reasons why these movies became so successful. And if you look at it, if you look at the success rate of the movies after he left the franchise, they kind of start slowly declining, with each entry. I think this one made pretty good, was pretty successful at the box office. I think about all the Police Academy movies have been pretty successful, just because at this point, this late in the franchise, people were just they love these movies, and they were glad, they were excited and happy to see all these movies coming out year after year. Um, but yeah, and like you said, it's just the juvenile humor, and that's in all of them. But like, I think some of the jokes in this, just to me, they just weren't up to par as some of the other. But it could be the fact that just after Bobcat Goldthwait, because he's not in this one, the character Zed doesn't return. Um, maybe I'm just spoiled on his character, after the movies he was in, and then after he leaves, like, it's not there anymore in the movies. So I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Um, but several of the characters, uh, like I said, several of the characters, they return for this one. But as I said before, the absence of Mahoney is noticeable. And the new character, Nick Lassard, fails to make this a strong impression. He just feels like a Dollar Tree ripoff version of Mahoney, because he tries to act like him. He tries to do like the same type of pranks that he would do. Because like when he does like the prank on Harris, where he puts like the uh, suntan lotion or whatever it is on it, and it spells out dork. And so he's like walking around, he has like it like imprinted on, from he's got sunburns around it, but he's got regular skin that spells out dork, and everybody's calling him dork. And like, I don't know, it's a weird little joke, but I mean, it's funny, but at the same time, it's kind of lame too, like compared to the jokes that Mahoney was pulling in the previous movies. Um, but and as I said before, like when I was talking to Dana, I said, also noticeably absent are Zed and Sweet Chuck as well. And Sweet Chuck he's not in this one either. And I think two of the best characters of the franchise. And I'd always hoped if they weren't going to feature them in the movies after Part Four, they would at least got like a TV show spinoff or something together, because those two really had great comedic chemistry. They really did. I really was hoping to see more of those guys. Um, oh, he's still laughing at the farting. Oh yeah, he's like the one of the jewel thieves, because we're there in the elevator, and then like the one farts, and then everybody in the elevator just moves to one side of the elevator, and the guy that farted still standing on the other side of the corner. He's like, what?" Trying to act like it wasn't him. But yeah, 'cause there is little things here and there that still does make me laugh about it, but just all the other ones before, just it's kind of a start to finish thing. Like everything is so great about the first four movies. Also, the Miami Beach setting in this feels, I think, more like a vacation for the characters than an integral part of the plot. And I get that's kind of what it is too, because they're just going down there to support Commandant Lassard because he's getting that award. So I mean, I think it was, when you have a movie like this that's has a beach setting, it's kind of expected to at least have some kind of like funny or cool beach scenes. I mean, hell, look at Top Gun. Top Gun is not a beach movie, but it has a beach scene where they play volleyball. Um, and if we're looking at stuff with cops, I'm a big fan of Reno 911, and then they did a Reno 911 movie in Miami. So same beach as what's in this one. So and it's kind of comedy involving these cops and stuff. But Reno 911 is another story. I mean, that's a completely different like world when it compared to Police Academy. But and I love Reno 911. But anyway, because of like the Miami Beach setting, because of the change of that to that, this was the first Police Academy movie that the Blue Oyster Bar joke wasn't used. So I'm kind of let down by that because that was always one of the things that when I would watch the Police Academy movies in order when I was younger, I always thought that that little joke that they continuously used in all the movies was great. And then when it got to this one, that was left out, and I was like, oh man, it sucks. But I can kind of understand because that was a bar back in their city, and this time they're in Miami. But I'll get back to that here in a little bit too. Um, Now, Police Academy 5, it's I think it's generally considered one of the weaker entries. And not everybody will agree with that. I know Dana likes it. She's one of her favorites. But just personally, I feel that it's one of the weaker entries in the franchise. I just think it just lacks the charm of the earlier movies, and the humor just kind of is just lacking as well. Um, I think this movie is still watchable though. I think it's definitely one that if you're a fan of the franchise, because with any franchise that is successful, you fall in love with these characters, and you're still entertained to an extent by them. And I think that's the thing with any franchise or anything that you're interested in, whether it be a TV show or something. You start loving these characters, and you want to keep watching them, even if like the content starts not being as good, but you still watch because you're invested in these characters. Um, and and you're entertained, to an extent by them. However, this one doesn't have really anything that's particularly memorable or noteworthy, other than the stuff that I've already mentioned. Um, and again, despite my somewhat negative review of Police Academy 5, um, said it was still a moderate box office success. I think it read it grossed over like 40 million worldwide or something. Um, so I mean that's still pretty good for the time because this was in 1988. So yeah, but I believe the movie, like is the movie is not terrible. I don't think the movie is terrible, but I eh, just don't enjoy it as much as the other ones before it. So to wrap up Police Academy 5, though, if you're new to the franchise, I say definitely watch this one just to check it out. Um, but ultimately, in my opinion, the franchise should have ended with 4. And after failing to bring back Gutenberg for 5, I think the producers should have just recognized that, and it was time to call it a day on the series. But this movie, like I said, this movie still made money. The other ones after this one also made money. So I mean, if the cash cows is still working, then why give up, right? Um, and like I said, earlier, the fact that Mahoney isn't even mentioned, and there's no explanation why he's gone, it always bothers me. I'm no huge Steve Gutenberg fan or anything, but I felt it was kind of a disservice to his character by to not acknowledge him. Um, so yeah, Police Academy 5. If it weren't for Mission to Moscow, this would probably be my least favorite of the franchise. But Mission to Moscow definitely takes that, and that's why I didn't watch Mission to Moscow because I do not like it at all. Uh, and so I typically when I watch the Police Academy series through, I always leave that one out. Um, and the next movie after this one is not much better, but it's definitely better in my opinion. So moving on to the last movie that I want to be talking about this evening, which is Police Academy 6, City Under Siege. It was released in 1989 and is directed by one of the funniest director names that I've ever heard, Peter Boners. That's right, Peter Boners, Bonerz. So I don't know if that's his real name or not, but like it it kind of matches up with the whole slapstick humor of Police Academy and all that. So this movie is a bit more entertaining than the previous installment in the franchise to me, but it still lacks that charm that the Police Academy movies used to have. Um, and while it retains some of the familiar faces and that humor that defined in the earlier movies, the formula of this movie kind of feels, I don't know, it's kind of weird, honestly. If I, So basically, the movie is about this mysterious master criminal known as Mr. Big, and his gang is led by this guy named Ace, who's played by Garrett Graham. And I'm a big Garrett Graham fan. I know Dana is too. So yeah, I had not seen this one in a while, and I totally forgot he was even in this. But anyway, so they're attempting just to cripple the city's police force, and the word gets out that Mr. Big is actually someone that's involved with the police force. Um, so all of these like crimes that are happening are kind of arranged to where the police will not be able to catch them. Um, the jokes in this, which a lot of the jokes are recycled from previous movies of the Police Academy series, so they don't work as well. I don't, in my opinion, and some of them kind of fall flat. It's like, oh, that's been done before. Why would they reuse that? Because you know, up until like the fifth movie, they were all of these jokes, except well, maybe except for one or two, that I actually talked about earlier. A lot of the jokes that they were using were unique to each entry, and so we saw several jokes in this one that were just kind of reused, and they don't work. They didn't work as well. And Hightower and Tackleberry in this are also kind of reduced to like caricatures of themselves. Same with Fackler, who, Fackler was already kind of a character of himself to begin with because, like I said, he's like a symbol of bad luck and all that. But he, like I said, he returns in this one, and I enjoyed seeing him back. I really liked Fackler in the earlier movies that he was in the Police Academy series, and the scenes with him in this one are probably my favorite scenes of the movie. But also it does feel like they went over the top with the gags for his character, where because whenever he's around, something really bad happens. It's just bad luck around everybody. Like when he first comes into the office at the beginning of the movie, like he walks by um, these boxes of fireworks that had been commandeered by the police, and somehow he like lights one of them, and it like does a chain reaction thing to where it's causing all the fireworks in all those boxes to light up, and they're just going off all around the police office. Um, I mean, it's really like over the top stuff like that. It's like goofy, but it's also very hilarious to me. Um, and the movie's attempts at like social commentary, like police corruption, it just feels kind of, I don't know, it's really weird and like tacked on, and it just clashes with the whole slapstick tone that the Police Academy movies usually have. Um, and the action sequences and the fight scenes between the police and the gang members are pretty funny as well. But they don't they don't really have any kind of real excitement to them. They're kind of really short and quick, and they're just there long enough to get the joke across. Um, and then as I've been talking about all these chase scenes at the end where they're trying to one up each other with each movie. This one definitely, I think, one ups the last because in the last one we had the fan boat chase scene. In this one, the police force are in a Bigfoot monster truck chasing Mr. Big, and this is a callback to Police Academy 2's ending after Tackleberry and Kirkland got married, and they left on their honeymoon in a Bigfoot monster truck. So whenever they find like the Bigfoot monster truck in this one, they're like, "Does anybody have experience driving one of these things?" And Tackleberry's like, "Yeah, I took one of these on my honeymoon." So I also enjoy that part. Like I said, there's several more. Even though the humor is kind of rehashed and kind of lackluster compared to the earlier films, I feel like this one hits different than what Part Five does. Definitely, it has a few more creative jokes, and even though, like I said, like the whole the clash between slapstick and the whole police corruption story um, feels weird. It also I can understand. It's kind of creative too. I like how they did that. I do like that aspect of the movie. Um, but the reveal of Mr. Big at the end is honestly kind of predictable. Um, and I had honestly forgot who it was since it had been so long. But as it was going through the movie, about midway through the movie, I kind of like I figured it out. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's." And even if you hadn't seen the movie in a long time, you'd seen it before and you'd forgot who it was. I think it is predictable. I think it's very predictable of who Mr. Big is in this. And if you haven't seen Police Academy 6, I won't reveal who Mr. Big actually is, but I think if you watch the movie, you could probably find it out. You could figure it out pretty easily too. Um, and again, Police Academy 6, also not a terrible movie, but it's definitely a far cry from the charm and wit that the first four movies brought. Um, it feels kind of like a cash grab, or where it's just where they churn out another sequel simply because the franchise still had some name recognition at the time. Um, and this would end up being the last Police Academy movie for like 5 years later when Mission to Moscow was put out, and that ended up being the last Police Academy movie. And this one is, I think, for diehard fans of the Police Academy movies. There's some nostalgic jokes in this to be found. It got a few laughs out of me, but I think for most viewers, I think this entry uh, can be best left forgotten sometimes. I mean, I know that's kind of harsh, but like I said, I truly feel that the Police Academy movie should have ended with the fourth after that being Steve Gutenberg's last Police Academy movie. So I think by this point when this one came out, the franchise had really run its course. Um, but the legacy overall, the legacy of Police Academy, I think, is undeniable. It spawned um, a hugely successful franchise with numerous sequels and television series and animated series. I think Universal Studios, the theme park back in the early '90s, even had like a live stage show for a short time of Police Academy. So it was definitely huge. It had a huge impact on pop culture. It's inspired a lot of other jokes, and it's quotable and stuff in other films. Um, and it's just it's I think it's a testament to its appeal and the comedic brilliance of of what these films originally intended to be. Um, Now I know that the Police Academy movies are were dismissed by big name film critics and stuff when they were coming out. But that I think a lot of, especially the earlier movies of the Police Academy series, goes to prove that these big name film critics suck, and nobody gives a shit what they have to say about some of these movies. I mean, it's up to you, the person that are watching these movies, and how you truly feel. If I don't like a movie and somebody else likes it, I want to still say that I don't like that movie, and I'm gonna tell you why I don't like it. But that doesn't change the fact um, what somebody else feels about it differently, and that's that's why I'm not real big on like film critics and stuff because some of the bigger like Siskel and Ebert, they would always like say shit like trying to convince people to not watch these movies. No, I don't think that's not how I feel. I think that you should watch any movie you want, and you could make your own decision on how you feel about that movie. But anyway, I think these movies are also a reminder that sometimes the most unlikely heroes are the ones who ultimately save the day, and they do so with with all these like this hilariousness involved along the way. So yeah, that's the Police Academy franchise, guys. Well, up to part six, it is. But yeah, definitely go check if you've seen these movies before, you like these movies. It go. I recommend revisiting them again. Because this is the first time I watched all these movies this week in a long time, and I'm so glad I did. It brought back so many memories. And if you've not seen these movies, then I mean, now is the time to do it. Why wait any longer if you've not seen them? You need to watch these, and I think that eventually, the, uh, this series could possibly get attention again, and I don't support like reboots and remakes and stuff, but I could definitely see a reboot happening with the Police Academy movies. I think they should go the same route that that they did with the original Police Academy, because when they were bringing in all of these actors like Steve Guttenberg and Michael Winslow and everybody, they weren't A-listers. They weren't big names in the film industry, but the Police Academy movies is what helped launch them into bigger roles and having more success. Like Steve Guttenberg, he started out with the Police Academy movies, and he went on to do the Cocoon movies and Short Circuit and the Three Men and a Little Baby, or 3 Men and a Baby series, and just several other things. And but this was the Police Academy movies is what really launched him into that '80s superstardom. And I think that if they were to reboot, please, they should do the same thing. Like, because there's a lot of comedic talent that's in the world right now, and some of them are extremely underrated talents. I think they could get guys like Bobby Lee. I don't know if anybody watching this knows Bobby Lee, but I love Bobby Lee when he was on Mad TV. His podcast is hilarious. Just it doesn't. They don't have to be big name like top of the food chain, A-list Hollywood movie stars to be. If they did a reboot of this, they could do the same thing and try to get some of these smaller name guys and kind of like really launch them into superstardom. Um, I would love that. I definitely would. And you know, talking about these movies and stuff, like I said, it brings back a lot of childhood memories because I had like the toy line and stuff, and it kind of makes me want to go and like look for those toys again, like at least like the action figures from the cartoon, because I had some when I was a kid. Like I said, I had Tackleberry and his police motorcycle, and I remember what's I think they made one of Zed, and I think like Zed's had like an action feature where his shorts fell down and he had like these boxers on that had hearts all over them. And I remember the Jones action figure had like a feature where like his thing on his back and his mouth would like get real big, and he had like an afro hair with a like a red bandana around it. And I think he also did like a karate chopping like move or something with his arm. But I'm a big like toy guy, especially like vintage toys from the 80s and 90s. That was the era of like, that really kind of formed me as a nerd and as a collector. And I would really like to find all of those Police Academy toys again. I think that would be really cool. Set them up here in my room somewhere. Um, and that's something with the channel that I do want to end up doing eventually. Is I want to go beyond just talking about these movies that I love and stuff, and movies that I'm watching. I've done the one little stream. It's like a short thing I did before the Royal Rumble, and that's because I'm a big wrestling fan. I would love to do more videos on wrestling stuff, and or do videos on like showing off my collection of toys and movies and games and everything that I have. Because I am not one of these people that collects just a couple different things. I like a ton of stuff, man. Like I like anything from like Disney plushes to Godzilla stuff to McDonald's Happy Meal toys from the 90s. I like a lot of stuff like that, and I would like to show off a lot of that stuff in here on the channel at some point too. I just got to kind of figure out like when I'm going to do that, how I'm going to do that, just different ideas behind it. Because right now I'm primarily focused on the 500 movies in 2025. Because like I said, I made this goal and it's going good so far. I mean, like I'm almost at 100 movies now. Like if this was 71 through 76 of the movies I've watched. And it's just early February. So I mean, there's still a lot of time in this year for me to get this goal accomplished. Um, I want to thank you guys for everybody that was in the that watched tonight live on the stream. I want to thank everybody that's watching this on the replay. I really appreciate you guys. I want to thank everybody in the chat, Dana, Zach, and I believe I'm the only one that was in the chat now. If anybody else here was watching, didn't see you guys show up in the chat at least, but I just want to let you guys know that I do appreciate you guys for at least stopping by and checking out my channel. Got some kind of cool stuff coming up. So I got one other stream I'm doing this week because tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to all you lovebirds out there. And if you're not doing anything this Valentine's Day weekend, on Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, I'll be doing my Valentine's Day special, which is called Valentine's Day Violence. And I'll be covering the original My Bloody Valentine, Hospital Massacre, Valentine, and My Bloody Valentine 3D. So I'll be talking about those four movies this Sunday. Again, that starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Then next week, so this next Monday coming is also President's Day. I'll be doing a President's Day special, which I'll have on Tuesday of next week, where I'll be talking about Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and Point Break. And that's the original Point Break with Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. So if you like either of those movies, those are doing those as a little short President's Day special stream next Tuesday. Um, Definitely got some other stuff planned coming up in the next few weeks. I hope you guys are going to check out and enjoy. Um, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please go ahead and subscribe. I'd appreciate that. Give this video a like. That would help me out a lot. Let your friends know. Share the channel on your social media. Let your friends know, your family know, whoever. Tell people you don't even like. tell them about it. Tell them to come watch. Tell them to come bullshit with me in the chat on these streams. That'd be fun. But again, like guys, this is one of the things I look forward the most to doing every week. Whether you're watching this with me live or you're watching on a replay, I do this just because this is something I've loved to talk about with like friends and family and stuff for years. And so, well, now I'm gonna put myself out there on YouTube, and just kind of talk about this stuff and just kind of treat it as a video diary for years to come when I'm dead and gone, my family can look back at this and be like, oh, well, he liked that movie and he liked that, and they can sit and make fun of me or whatever they want to do. But anyway, guys, it's been fun. I will see you guys on Sunday night for the Valentine's Day Violence Show. And love you guys. Have a good night.